Hey, this is 6.1 Doom's Lab. This video is for Hook of the Reaper version 1.2.1. So I know I just released one pretty not that long ago, but we found a pretty bad bug. So I just wanted, and it's also been a while, so I thought we should just do another quick release to get this bug taken care of and fixed, as it's kind of bad. I mean, it's only bad if you're using Sinden with two Sinden light guns for player two, or the MX24. So those two light guns can be affected by this bug. But before we get into that, I'll just kind of since I'll just go over some of the other stuff I have first, really quick. So I know Michael S. has been doing a lot of testing, and I just saw actually today he got the Hook of the Reaper kind of integrated into his drive, which is cool. Which kind of explains why he was doing a lot of testing. But yeah, he found a couple things, kind of one error in one of the files and some differences I'll go through. So the first error was in the zombie raid game. This is for the MAME, and pretty much here I can show you what the bad thing. So on the recoil value for player two, there is no pound, so there needs to be a pound right there. Then so I fixed that. Actually, I think I uploaded the files and an edit for 1.2.0 for edit 2, but I put them in here too, so then make sure everybody gets it too. But yeah, that was kind of the only big error that there was. Then the next one was on Golly Ghost, which is actually kind of weird because he was like, well, the recoil signal I have is gun recoil 0 1. And I was like, that's kind of weird. I have player 1 2 game recoil. Or I think it's actually gun recoil, not game recoil. Sorry, I miswrote that. So I was trying to figure out. I'm like, well, I first thought it was the ROM file. I'm like, well, maybe it's a different ROM version. But no, it turned out to be different MAME versions, actually. So the newer versions of MAME actually use gun recoil 0 and 1. And the older versions, which I use testing as 0.205, used, I said player 1 2 gun recoil. So it really depends on what version of MAME you're running, and that will actually say what output signals for the recoil you'll get. So I updated the default LG game file with both of them, because you should only have one of them. So if you have the newer MAME, then you get the gun recoil. If you have the older one, you get player 1 2 gun recoil. So that was kind of pretty interesting. And it also told me that Golly Ghost 2, Bubble Trouble, Golly Ghost 2 actually had outputs. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I remember testing that one and it didn't. Well, there's a reason for that, actually. This is kind of the same reason. Newer versions use the gun recoil 0 and 1, and older versions have none. So that's why when I probably tested it on 0.205, I didn't see any outputs for it. So now it actually has gun recoil in there. So, oh, that's cool. So I got that in, and also I found, some signals to use for shake on it too. So I put that in. So now when the characters kind of jump out, it kind of shakes, and so it's pretty cool. And also I kind of saw what the original arcade game of Golly Ghost looks like, which is pretty cool. And now it makes sense because I saw the output signals for like bathroom, kitchen, and I'm like, that's kind of weird. There is no bathroom or kitchen in the game. But when you see the arcade game, there is like a bathroom and kitchen, and it's actually this little model thing that opens doors, and that's where the ghosts go in and out of through it. I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. So the arcade version's actually pretty cool for it. But that kind of explains why I didn't see any outputs for Golly Ghost 2, because I was using the older version. Then the last thing was on Time Crisis 5. He tested if you go to the website. So as you can see here now, I have the file up at Bubble Trouble Golly Ghost Q. As you can see, it has a shake feature. Then also I say, hey, recoil only works on the newer MAME versions. And no output signals on MAME.2.1. And Golly Ghost, I just kind of went through it, so I won't go through that again. Then let's go to Demol Shooter down to Time Crisis 5. So as you can see here, there's a bug with Demol Shooter. So if you're using Time Crisis with TechnoParrot and Demol Shooter, there's a couple things actually. It's using COM4, so if your light gun is on COM4, you probably have to change it around because it won't work with the game. Then what happens? There's no custom recoil when you're using kind of latest version of Demol Shooter with Time Crisis 5. It's only using the ammo value to do recoil, so there's no custom recoil signal. And below it is how to get back that custom recoil. So there's two things you can do. You can do Time Crisis 5 with just Demol Shooter, right? Kind of standalone. You use this Demol Shooter as the inputs and all that. Then you can play the game, and then you can get the custom recoil. And the other way is to use Demol Shooter version 10.4.4, but that 10.4.4 doesn't have any network outputs working on it. So, but it works with MameHooker, but there's no, and I updated it, as you can see here, it's working with MameHooker and has no network outputs. I don't know if versions like before that, like 10.3, I don't know if that one actually, because I think there was a bug in 10.4.4, but also I think he might have had Time Crisis in that one. So if you do earlier, it might not have Time Crisis in it. So I have to check on that. But that's kind of the two ways to get back the custom recoil for it. Then you can take that file, the TC5DS, and you can move it over. Then that file has the recoil with the recoil signal in it. So I've updated my site kind of with the info he gave me about Time Crisis. But the good thing on Hook of the Reaper version 1.2.0, I added in ammo check default LG option, and it's on for Time Crisis 5 and House of the Dead, Scarlet Dawn. And what does that do? Well, when you change guns, especially in Time Crisis 5, when you change the guns, it's going to change the ammo. And if that ammo is lower, it will do a recoil, or if the ammo goes higher, it does a reload. Well, that's not good. You don't want to have reload or recoil happening every time you change a gun. So now it checks it to say, hey, is it only went down by one bullet? And go, okay, if it did, then recoil. If it didn't, do a reload. So then anytime you change a gun, probably 99% of the time, it's going to do a reload. Unless you change the gun and it has one less bullet, then it will do a recoil. Or if you're in slow mode, then it's 2 bullets, because slow mode's doing either other. So then it's always going to be a delta of 2 in slow mode. So that should take out a lot of, when you change weapons, it shouldn't recoil anymore most of the time. You still have that one little tiny percentage where it might recoil if you have one less bullet. But so hopefully now Time Crisis 5 shouldn't be that bad using ammo value. So, but those are kind of some of the info I got from him from all his testing. And so thanks to Michael S. for doing a lot of that testing. And actually, so now Hook of the Reaper I saw is integrated into his drive, which is cool. So Hook of the Reaper has hooked another drive. So I don't think that joke is probably ever going to get old for me. So I'm probably going to always use it. But okay, let's move on to the bugs. This is kind of what we're here for and why I kind of did this release. So when we're doing some testing, it was kind of weird because when everybody got it, it seemed like it's working, and player 2 was working fine and all that. But it seemed when people were changing the Sinden.hor file, which is kind of the commands that Hook of the Reaper use, right? You have the generic commands equal what the Sinden command should be. Then it's a little weird because it has player 1 and player 2. It kind of splits them up. And so when people were trying to change that, it was kind of messing with things and kind of corrupting Hook of the Reaper. And then what's happening on player 2, it was loading player 1's commands. So when you fire on kind of player 2, it would just go on player 1. So it was kind of weird. So then if you fire on player 1, it would go on player 1. So I didn't know if it was being corrupted when people changed the Sinden.hor, but after a lot of people did testing on it, we found out no, it isn't. It's actually, you can take, you can download Hook of the Reaper, put it into a new directory, and start it up, and close it, and open it. Like the first time you load it up, it was always fine. But when you close it and load it up a second time, it might work or might not work. And it was kind of random for people. And that was really weird. But I think a lot of the other people helped was narrowing down this problem. So yeah, let me bring this back. So like I said, with the clean install, we'll kind of narrow it down to boot up. Then that's when, now that we narrow it down to boot up, that's when I finally noticed, what the problem was. It was actually with the if statement using an uninitialized value. So if the value was 0, it loaded player 1's command into player 2's stuff. If it was not 0, it loaded in the correct player's 2 commands, the good player 2's commands, which is correct. So it had that weird, if it was 0, then it kind of screwed up. And if it wasn't, so that's why it was a random kind of bug. And every time I tested it, it always worked. So then I never saw it. And also, I don't have 2 Sinden light guns, so I couldn't really test it. But when I did the commands, I always checked it to make sure it was loading up player 1, player 2 commands. And it was always working correct. So I never saw kind of the problem. It was random. It wasn't until like later that people used it for a while that the problem kind of slowly evolved and came up. And that's kind of then when I had that enough information, I could narrow it down and get at it. So now that I know where that uninitialized value is, I fixed it in Hook of the Reaper version 1.2.1. And if I didn't talk about it, this affects Sinden and the MX24. So why does it affect these two? Well, like I said, Sinden has player 1 and player 2 commands, and the MX24 is pretty much the same thing. It depends on your dip switch. If you dip switch player 1, you do these commands. If it's player 2, you do these commands. And I think you can do the same thing with player 3 and 4. I heard that was working, but I haven't put it in yet. I think I updated the code at some for it, but so if that's what happened with both of them for the Sinden and MX24. So these 2 light guns are affected if you're using a player 2 light gun with them. It can, percentage-wise load up player 1's commands, and it's kind of random, right? I mean, since it's looking for a 0, if it's not a 0, then it loads it up. So it's probably the probability of it, it's probably more rare that it kind of bugs out. But don't know that for sure because you're using uninitialized values. So what I did to fix it, I put more stuff in the if statement. So I make sure, it said, hey, it has to be you have to be using the MX24 in the value or Sinden or like in the value kind of thing. So I've now put the other two uninitialized stuff. Well, the other one's not initialized. Only one of them was uninitialized. So now that one uninitialized one has like and with it with the gun. So if it's not, because that will say if it's initialized or not. So if it is, then the other side of the and would be 1. Then if it is 1, then it will go through. So that kind of solved the uninitialized problem now. And also I went through and make sure I didn't have any uninitialized values. So I initialized them with the correct value or unassigned. So what kind of are some of these values are? Well, it's kind of like, MX24, you have dip switch player, right? So if you had a Reaper, dip switch player doesn't really matter, right? You can just leave it unset or uninitialized, right? But that's not the best thing to do. I usually had a lot of the values initialized. I only had a couple that weren't uninitialized. And I did a check on the if statement right before, but the next one I didn't. So I was just like, it's like I did it before, but I didn't follow through. But I did go back and make sure now everything's that was not initialized is now initialized. So if there is other problems in the code that I don't know about, now anything won't happen because they're initialized to like an unassigned value or a value they shouldn't be, right? So then any of these checks shouldn't be there because it's not in the range that it should be checking for. So it would just skip over them and not be there. So which is really good and which should have been done. If I did that, I wouldn't have this problem. So that's easy to kind of do. I went through all that to make sure everything was in the light gun section. Then also I had to, because I didn't know what was doing. I made that quick video about how to modify the horse since it was player 1 and player 2, and you couldn't really have any empty spaces. But I've kind of fixed that problem now. So you can have empty spaces, or if you actually do put an empty space in there, it's not really going to do anything. It kind of gets taken care of. So now you don't really have to worry about empty spaces now for version 1.2.1. That's only on 1.2.0. Okay. Then if the command cannot be loaded, it will bring up a pop-up window error, and it'll tell you the problematic command in the sinden.hor file or the mx24.hor file. It'll tell you the line or the commands that it's giving the problem. So now if there is any problem loading any of the commands, it will error out and tell the user, hey, you need to fix this. Or it can't load up the commands and this, there's something wrong with it. But okay. But I'd like to give a big thanks to JP. Then sorry if I'm saying this wrong. What's Stihar or STHAR and the boy 181. So these guys did a lot of testing, especially like JP. I know he worked with other people. He did a lot of testing, but all of them helped give info and did a lot of work, and so we could narrow down this bug. So those guys are on the Sinden Discord, so I just like to thank those guys for all the testing they did and helping narrow down this bug. So, which really helped out because we narrowed it down to boot up, which then I knew it kind of was in that command. Then there's only so much till I finally noticed and go, oh crap, okay, that's where it is. But yeah, that's why we're just having this short kind of release is just kind of fix this kind of bad bug. But so I just wanted to give you info about the other game files, which I found interesting. But that's it. That's so thanks. Bye.